So I just saw Eyes Wide Shut, and whoa, that was oh my god. um, I guess before I start talking about this movie, it is really important to address the director, Stanley Kubrick. Pretty much universally considered one of the greatest directors ever, like pretty much universally top 10, that'd be fair to say. For everybody who's like a big cinephile. For me, he's like top three. He's right there with Tarantino and Edgar Wright for me, and just in terms of just favorite directors. Doesn't mean that averaging all their movies in together, they're like the highest ratings and stuff like that. Just mainly their aesthetic and how much I respect it and what they do and like what they do with their projects. I'll just briefly give my thoughts on the other movies of his that I've seen. The Shining, I've talked about it a little bit before, like with The Conjuring and stuff like that. It's my favorite horror movie ever. I think it's a masterpiece of interpretive horror. It's extremely well written, so well acted in really every way. It's got pretty much the best soundtrack to any horror movie ever made. And I really can't, like, I've seen pretty much all the classics and all the horror movies that are usually considered among the best horror movies ever made. Um, yeah, so if they really are, those are the best horror movies ever made, Shining is the best horror movie ever made. Love it to death. Easily top five favorite movies for me. And probably easily top 10 best movies of any kind that I've ever seen. Doctor Strangelove, like it a lot. And Shining would probably be is a 10 out of 10. Doctor Strangelove is probably a high 8 out of 10, mainly because I feel like it's really great. On all accounts, it's a fantastic movie. Not really that many problems with it, except I feel like some of the cutaways with Peter Sellers as the British officer is like they're not as great as like the boardroom meeting. That stuff is cinematic gold. Perfect. It's just so perfect. That's that part of the movie. And I also don't like in that movie how like all the cutaways to the plane. I kind of feel like that stuff is just flat out not interesting to me at all, and really does rob the pace of that movie a lot. Plus the effect of the plane. While it's not fair to say this, when you don't need to show it, I will point out the fact that it looks really dated. So that's those two. 2001. I don't really like that much. I think I respect it a lot more than I actually like it. I would probably give it a high 4 out of 10, mainly because I just feel like, honestly, I think the movie answers a little bit too much of its questions and doesn't leave enough up to interpretation of like the questions that it does bring up. I kind of feel like it gives too many answers, and the answers really aren't as satisfying as I'd like them to be. So when you just take out the fact that the movie is entirely symbolism based, if it's your favorite movie ever, you have to admit it's not because of the plot. It's because of the symbolism and the questions that it brings up. So for me, if that's not satisfying me, it's not. All that's really left there is just a lot of special effects that go on for an extremely long period of time. It's just it gets obnoxious after a while, and since there's no story, there aren't any characters for me to get attached to. So what I'm really left with is just a movie that I respect what it did for science fiction more than I actually like it or even think it's very good. So I'm sure that if I rewatched it, I'd like it more. But that's how I feel about it right now. Full Metal Jacket. I have a similar opinion to how a lot of people feel about that. I think the first 50 minutes, yeah, I think the first 50 minutes are fucking awesome. They're so great. They're so great on their own. Just as its own movie. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need it didn't need this fucking lamp. It didn't need it didn't need the Vietnam section. It didn't need that. The first 50 minutes are great. R. Lee Ermey, holy shit, man, second best performance in a Kubrick movie that I've seen. Holy shit, he is just as good as everybody says he is. Same with Vincent D'Onofrio. You can't go wrong with Vincent D'Onofrio. He's great. The second 50 minutes are boring as shit. They are not interesting at all. They are a drag. And they're not even staged well. Like, Kubrick does a poor job of really making you feel like you're even in Vietnam in that movie in the first place. So, I mean, I don't even think he directs that second 50 minutes very well. And the last 20 minutes they're pretty good. Like, they're just like a standard war movie, and it's kind of exciting, and you start to get into it. So, I would probably give that, like, probably like a high 6 out of 10. That's just me. And A Clockwork Orange is my favorite movie ever. It's actually my favorite film of all time. It is one of the only two movies I've ever seen that I actually can call perfect. It's a perfect movie. It's this and Ed Wood, bringing it back to Tim Burton. It's so full of, seriously, like I've said it a couple times, Malcolm McDowell gives a performance so incredibly, I can't even imagine that a performance could possibly be better than that. Like, really, it's just impossible. This guy is so good. This guy, he is so fucking good in that movie, and I just love every single thing about it. Art direction, soundtrack, the themes, just the way it's filmed. Every single thing about that movie is just the definition of it's perfect in every way. It's perfect. Love Clockwork to death. So whenever I see a Kubrick movie now, it's kind of like, oh, all right, I'm just getting ready to watch a Kubrick movie, like one of my favorites. And the reason why I wanted to do Eyes Wide Shut next was because Eyes Wide Shut has the comparison, like, in terms of sets, not sets, I'm sorry, the controversy with the actors and what happened to them, like, on the set of Eyes Wide Shut, which was, to anybody who knows anything about the making of The Shining, Kubrick really likes doing a lot of takes in a row, and, like, some call him a perfectionist, and others just call him just, like, he's just a dick, and just, like, wants to get it as many times, and some say that he just wants to break down the actors enough so they can get the emotional scenes and make it feel like they're real. And with The Shining, he got some scenes that are they're just so good. So incredibly good. Like, he broke Scatman Crothers and Shelley Duvall in that movie. He just broke them psychologically on the set. He just treated them like shit. And you just feel really bad for him. I mean, if you've seen the interview with Scatman Crothers, when he thinks about it, like, he starts crying, and it's really just saddening and just haunting. Just he cries. The actor, not the actual character in the movie, the actual actor cries thinking about the experience of working with Stanley Kubrick on that fucking movie. So when I'd heard that Eyes Wide Shut basically was the same thing where, like, we're just going to keep doing more takes. Just more takes. We're just going to do as many takes as possible. And also that I know that this is the movie that broke up Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. I knew, kind of, just with myself, I just kind of knew, you know, if he can capture anything that he did in The Shining, I'm there. I'm so there. It's gonna be awesome. I love I love Shelley Duvall and Scatman Crothers in that movie, so I was like, great. Now, this movie was a trip. This was wow. I can honestly say I don't think I'm ever going to see another movie like this again. Not because I was like, I hated this movie, I never want to see anything like it again, but I can't imagine anything out there being like this at all. I just finished watching it. I'm gonna have to have my notes ready because I'm not gonna be able to process all the things that I just saw off the top of my head. So I'm gonna need my notes. I'm gonna have to frequently reference them. I should start this off by saying that other than Stanley Kubrick, I guess the main other element in this movie is Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. So I should give my thoughts on the actors. Nicole Kidman, I've seen in two things prior to this. Moulin Rouge, which she completely undeservedly got an Oscar nomination for. Academy, just once again, in addition to you didn't nominate this guy, but you nominated Nicole Kidman for Moulin Rouge. How, like, just, you know what, just another thing, Oscars are full of shit. Fucking preposterous. And I've seen her in Batman Forever, which she is ruinously bad in that movie. And the movie already is shit. That movie's already shit anyway, and she's ruinously bad. So it's just another element to a shit fest. Oh my god, she's terrible in Batman Forever. In Moulin Rouge, she can sing, but I never really saw her as much of a talent. I always kind of saw her as, oh, it's that woman that Tom Cruise, that was married to Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise. I've seen him in four things: Top Gun and Oblivion, which I thought he was miserably boring in the both. Well, I thought he was miserably boring in Top Gun. Oblivion, I just didn't think he was very good. I just kind of thought that he was a little too over the top at points and just not exciting enough at times. I think he seems like he's a competent action star, though I haven't seen him in an action movie before. So there's those two. Fuck both of those movies anyway. But the movies I have seen him in, Tropic Thunder, which he is, whether or not you like Tropic Thunder or not, and whether or not you even think that Tom Cruise is funny in that movie, he is so incredibly memorable in that movie in so many ways. You wouldn't even believe that it's Tom Cruise looking at him during that performance. And I love Tropic Thunder. I haven't seen it in a while, but I love it. I think he's really funny, really great in it. And I've also seen him in War of the Worlds, and I love War of the Worlds. I think I'm one of the only people that does. I think he's really good in that movie, and he actually kind of showed that he can play like a decent range of emotions. And I really like War of the Worlds. That's an underrated movie. So going into this, I was kind of skeptical about both of the actors, mainly Nicole Kidman. But okay, Nicole Kidman. I'll start with her. She's not in this movie as much as I thought she was going to be. I mean, she is like second build on the movie, and I've never heard about anybody else being in the movie. I always heard that this was the Stanley Kubrick, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman movie. And I always just thought, like, if this was a movie that was going to break up their relationship, and I'll probably get into this later, but I fucking understand that, considering the themes of the movie. Kidman, I would have thought, like, I would have thought that if she's being forced to, like, have all these scenes and having to deliver these powerful scenes next to her husband and stuff like that, I would think that she's in more of the movie. And she really only has maybe a dozen scenes. And this is like a 2.5-hour movie, so saying like a dozen scenes. Though, at the same time, a dozen scenes in this movie, I think this movie only is like, 30 scenes. And I'll probably also get into that later. But she's maybe in like 45 minutes of the movie. So she's not in it that much. But in those scenes, at least 20 minutes of them, she's high or drunk. So, I mean, I guess she plays high and drunk well, I guess. But in her other scenes, I thought she was fine. I thought she sold crying really well. Did a really good job with that. So for the most part, I thought she was good. It's not really one of those performances where it's like, there's too much behind the character where it's like that I feel like another actress could have really brought that much more to the role. So I was totally fine with it being Nicole Kidman in the role. And Tom Cruise, on the other hand, I feel like early on in the movie, I was thinking, oh no, shit, oh my god, this is gonna be what he's doing the whole movie. He's gonna be doing the thing with with his big goofy fuck off smile. Like you just want to punch so hard that every single one of his teeth like flies into the back of his throat and he chokes to death. But I mean, it's just me. Um, in the beginning, I was worried as hell. Oh god. Early on in the movie, he has like these points where he just will just do shit with his hands. Like he'll be like, I'll nudge you in the ribs, put arms around you, and then just he'll in the middle of scenes he'll just go. Like he's doing a lot of shit with his hands, and it's goofy, and it's just weird, and I don't know. And I was just sitting here like, oh my god, don't do this, Cruise. Um, but he's fine as the movie goes along. He's kind of another one of those. He's kind of like Nicole Kidman in this movie, where I don't feel like there's enough behind the character that it's like the actor wasn't bringing enough to the role. If you know what I'm trying to say, I feel like Tom Cruise was giving the role honestly kind of everything that it deserved. So I guess he was good. This is probably one of his better performances that I've seen from him. So that was good. Aside from that, a little bit on how the movie looks, because you can't really talk about a Kubrick movie without saying how it looks. This might be his best looking movie. I haven't seen Clockwork in about a year or so, and I love that movie to death, and it looks great. But this might be his best looking movie, and that's awesome, especially considering the fact that it was unfortunately his last. But like this might be the most gorgeous movie I've ever seen. I think I said that when I saw both Saving Private Ryan and There Will Be Blood. I saw both of those, and I saw Saving Private Ryan and was like, this is probably the most visually impressive movie I've ever seen. Then I saw There Will Be Blood, and I'm like, holy damn, does this movie look really good? And then this might be the best looking movie I've ever seen. I just, it's so colorful, and just I think Kubrick kind of finally, he really has shown that he's really good with Steadicam, and he likes using it a lot too. It's such, and the sets are amazing. I mean, just amazing sets in this movie. Just enormous, huge sets. And I know a lot of the sets in this movie were like filmed on like a backlot or something, I think. Like a lot of it was all of this was just sets, and you really do think like, oh my god, I'm really in this mansion. Oh my god, I'm really on like this street corner. Oh my god, I'm really like in this this room that just, it has so much detail. It has so many things going on in the room that it's just like you totally buy into it, and like you totally buy like, oh, these people could actually live here. Oh, it really good job with the sets. It's preposterous that this movie was not nominated for some kind of art direction or something like that, because it's fucking great. I know it was 99, and this was a big year for movies, especially in terms of special effects. You know, Matrix and Episode 1. But this movie deserved some kind of mention. I mean, it looks really good. So yeah, top notch in terms of the way that this movie looks. In terms of other things that are kind of Kubrick as like his tropes, I noticed kind of something that they did a lot with The Shining, where there are it's a lot of conversations that have elongated pauses in between when somebody will say something. Like I remember mainly Scatman Crothers and Danny in The Shining when they're talking, like Scatman will say something, and there will actually be like a 3 or 4 second pause, and then Danny will say something, and I kind of like that about Kubrick. For the most part, I think it works pretty well. Here, um, he really, I think he might have overdone it a little bit. I feel like I had notes on that. Just give me a moment. The pauses, normally I kind of feel like it works mainly with The Shining because it's like, and it also works here, but it works because it shows like the unease, like how uneasy these characters are feeling when they're having these conversations, and how at times cold they are with each other. Like in this movie, there are so many scenes where there will just be seriously like 8 second pauses in between when people are talking with each other, and it just feels natural, like they're having these conversations that are really serious and weighty, and I'm not sure if that's a word. Um, these conversations that are really important and stuff like that, and it works because this is a movie that like is basically frequently made up of conversations about like about important things, at least as the characters see so. Um, Also, in terms of directing, I feel like Kubrick really like kind of pulled out some of his Shining tricks here, and not exactly that like, oh, he just ripped himself off from The Shining, but like, no, there are scenes in this movie that are fucking terrifying. I mean, the scene, I'm gonna, okay, spoilers for right now. I'll try to make this as quick as possible, so like, just jump ahead, whatever. Um, um, but I'll try and not have this part spoiled very much because it's not that far into the movie. But the part when Cruz first goes into the mansion, that's all I'm gonna say. So actually, this won't be a big deal. When he first goes into the mansion and he's walking through, and you see the big grand hallway, and you see what they're doing, it's seriously like, oh my god, like, and the scene when he gets called down back to that room is quite possibly just as scary as anything in The Shining. That is seriously one of the scariest things I've seen in a movie in a fucking long time. And probably possibly one of the best scenes in any, like, not the scene overall, but just one of the best little moments in any movie I've ever seen. It's incredible. It's like it really is. If you want a scene to prove that Stanley Kubrick is a genius filmmaker, pick out almost any other scene from A Clockwork Orange. But then, if you don't want to do that, just show them this scene. Show them this scene, and they'll just be like, "I get it. I totally get it. The scene is shit your pants, terrifying. Great scene." Other than that, like, there's a scene when he's walking through the city, and again, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but he's walking through the city, and he notices something. Is all I'll say. Um, awesome scene. I've seen so many other movies do something exactly like this, and none of them have done it as well as this movie has. Really, really frightening, really good tension. I'm always surprised that in pretty much any Kubrick movie there will always be one moment of really good tension, like the space vortex kind of trippy thing at the end of 2001. That scene is kind of scary too. Actually, Kubrick even like he's really good at actually holding tension for a really long time. Full Metal Jacket, there's the scene when they're all running out through the abandoned buildings at the end, and they don't know who's going to get shot and stuff like that. Like he's so good with tension. Love his the way that he directs stuff. Let's see. The supporting actors are also very good. Alan Cumming has an amusing little role as, I think he was the guy behind. He was the what was he? He was the like the lobby boy or something like that. He's kind of amusing. A lot of the supporting characters they're really good. Like they add a lot to the roles that they're giving, and they make it seem surprisingly natural. And I think I said this before, but Kubrick is possibly one of the best directors of actors I've ever seen. The thing that kind of surprises me about this movie, though, is I normally see Kubrick as being kind of like Christopher Nolan in this way, that I kind of see him being more about the ideas of what he's showing on screen more than the actual emotion and that kind of stuff. Which is kind of odd that he can be very cold at times, kind of like Christopher Nolan. He can be very, very cold, and not really giving the conflicts that the characters are actually going through. Except for definitely, I mean, Nolan is also in like my top 5 favorite directors, but not all of his movies are always about like the reason why I like them is always because of like the tender relationships that they have with each other. Except for Dark Knight, and I mean there are exceptions. Like with Nolan, there's Dark Knight, and with Kubrick, in a way, it's Clockwork Orange. But I kind of feel like it's weird that Kubrick really is doing a movie that is about caring about another person and what it actually means to want to be married to them. I just find that kind of strange, that, and it's not like he doesn't pull it off. He does a pretty good job at pulling it off, I think, but it just comes off as very strange to me that this is the kind of movie that he would actually want to do. Yeah. Huh. It's just strange. Other than that, let's see. Okay. Problems that I have. I don't know if really the characters that Kubrick's really set up here, like Cruise and Kidman, I don't really know if they're interesting enough characters to really sustain a movie that's 2.5 hours long. Or something about them, and the way that they kind of interact with each other, that they're not the most interesting people. Some of the conflicts that they're going through are pretty interesting, but I'm not entirely sure that they're really worthy of a 2.5 hour long movie. Maybe an hour 50 or something like that. But I understand that the movie, at a certain point, does become more about, again, trying not to spoil anything, Cruise really discovering what it is that's happening here, which the movie, in a way, honestly, kind of just to switch genres completely. Other than that, so there's that. Because at a certain point, you kind of just forget the conflict that they're even going through. It just becomes a different movie. And I like both of the movies, but it's an awkward shift. It's kind of like in True Lies when it becomes about, like, Arnold is fighting terrorists, and then he's messing with his wife, and then he's fighting terrorists again. Each in 45 minutes of fighting terrorists, 45 minutes of fucking around with his wife. Not fucking his wife, fucking, like, messing with her. And then another 45 minutes of him just, like, blowing up brown people, as the movie basically calls it. Other than that, I kind of feel like the movie has too many, like, overly long scenes. Like, here's an example. The first, I would say, about 25 minutes of the movie is at a party. And then, it's just like, you realize that, like, oh my god, we spent a third of the movie here. Alright. So, like, 25 minutes at the beginning. And then, like, another whole section of the movie is just kind of them arguing. And then it goes into Cruise out in the town, just kind of walking around, kind of going through a very Holden Caulfield kind of like I'm trying to discover things about myself, and at least that's how I see it. Then he gets invited to this building. That's all I'm gonna say. Then leaves the building, and all these are in like 20 to 25-minute sections of the movie. And then it's just like 45 minutes of him trying to find things, 10-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation. Like I just kind of feel like even it, and at least in those 45-minute segments, there are like maybe 10 scenes or something like that. It's just that the movie only feels like it's being comprised of like a few really overly long scenes, and I think what I'm trying to get across here is that, I mean, in that in itself isn't bad. It's just the fact that in these 20 or so minute long scenes, not enough is happening. The scene with his with I think it was his boss at the end of the movie, it goes on too long. Probably like concise editing could have trimmed this movie down to at least 2 hours in a fucking minute. I mean, like, not in a, I think you know what I'm trying to say. There's no reason that this movie needs to be 2.5 hours long, but it's a slow movie, and I don't mind slow movies. But in a way, it just becomes something that it's like you're being a bit overindulgent. It's not like it has to be told this way. It's just because this is a slow movie. So I mean, we're literally going to make, like I said before, the awkward, like the elongated pauses in between sentences really long, and it really kind of becomes like, it's not miserable for me, but it does at times kind of become like, hurry up. You gotta hurry up. Get to the point. You gotta stop. There are moments where I'm kind of thinking like, you need to hurry up. And I think that might actually be why I feel like I often see that a lot of people call this one of the worst Kubrick movies. I think that might be why, is because this is really, it's a very slow movie. And I think maybe the reason why I enjoyed it so much was just because I was in the mood, I guess, for a slow movie. I never really know if I'm ever in the mood for a slow movie, but that's just something I noticed. Let's see. There was one that, and this is, this isn't really a spoiler, but it's just kind of a little thematic thing that I thought was kind of interesting. The movie is about, sex and, how that does play into marriages and, how much weight they'll have on a marriage and stuff like that. What I found interesting was, when he goes out on this night, and on this big like Holden Caulfield like night of just, I'm just gonna wander around. I just need to be by myself, and I'm gonna basically get into misadventures with these people. It does kind. There's a point when he is walking, and there's this woman, and it's obviously a prostitute, and like they go inside with each other, and later on in the movie that has a payoff of, okay, this is a spoiler, so like 30 seconds from now, just skip to then, is that the prostitute has HIV, but Cruise didn't sleep with her. So in a way, I kind of thought that was showing that in his exploration of sex and like how his wife, he and his wife have a relationship that's almost entirely defined by sex. I thought it was kind of interesting that the movie spent time showing that, while it does show some of the glamorous side of sex, it also shows like the repercussions of sex, besides just being deceitful and stuff like that, like diseases and stuff. I just thought that was actually really clever. So there's that. I just wanted to say that. Let's see. There's the score, which gets very annoying at times. Not the like that I love that music. But the piano where it's like bum 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 bum, like that gets fucking annoying really fast. Even though at the end That was terrifying. I'm not giving that away at all. That was brilliant. The scene when he comes home for at the last time. Piano music works really well there. But everything else, it's just kind of, it just gets really repetitive to the point that you just want to just like fuck off piano. Just I would rather there just be no score at all, than to have this fucking piano just annoying stuff. In addition to the editing, I also kind of feel like a lot of this movie is just made up of people walking places for too long. Like I remember there's a scene when just like Tom Cruise just like he goes to the kitchen and he gets a beer and he drinks it and it just like fades away into the next scene. I'm like, what the, like, why did you fucking keep that in the movie? Was that necessary, Kubrick? Fuck you. Don't fucking do that. Like when he's walking around in the city, like you really are just watching him walk around in the fucking city for a while, which does it gets kind of tiresome after a while. And, I guess the last thing I really have to say about it is that I think more than any other movie I've ever seen before, this might be the most adult movie I've ever seen. Not in terms of like content, even though I will also say that this is probably the movie that has the most nudity in it that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, whoa, there's a lot of nudity in this. Uh, I really feel like a lot of the themes of this movie are based around marriage and how you would react to. This isn't like This Is 40, where it's some Judd Apatow like, kooky crazy. We know like little idiosyncrasies that your husband of like 8 years does, or your wife of 12 years does, and stuff like that. No, this movie is like it really is kind of like your wife cheated on you. What are you going to do? Like it's stone cold serious. What are you gonna do? What do you do? It's not some kind of cute thing of like, I'll just go out and like have some kind of wacky misadventure. No, this feels real, and it feels uncomfortable, and it's just something that I kind of feel like on a level I haven't gone through enough in my own life yet that I can really say I understand how a lot of these characters are feeling at times. It is a movie that has a lot of themes of a marriage of a certain period of time and what it actually means, sex with that person and stuff like that. So I can't really comment on that yet because I haven't gone through enough in my life. So this probably is the most adult movie I've ever seen, like in terms of actually what the movie is asking the audience, what it's asking the audience to have gone through before. So I mean, on that level, I can't totally relate to the movie, but I really appreciated this movie. I overall, I really liked it a lot. I feel like there are things about it, like the editing, that really just goes on too long. But overall, I found, and even though at a certain point the characters they're not interesting enough to really sustain the movie, for as long as they do, they switch genres and they switch it to something else that's also very interesting. So that kind of helps, if that makes sense. Overall, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the mystery of it. I thought it had really interesting twists and turns. Kind of a cliche thing to say, but I think I really think it did. So, overall, I think I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. I really liked it a lot. And I would definitely say, if I'm ranking the 6 Kubrick movies I've seen, Clockwork, Shining, and this isn't a scale, like, this is my least favorite of them. This is my favorite. Not as in, like, this is the worst and this is the best thing ever. You know, this is the best thing ever. Clockwork is best. Shining, Strangelove, Eyes Wide Shut, Full Metal Jacket, 2001. Sorry, just don't really like that movie very much. But Uh, yeah. Solid 8 out of 10.